This is the official MITUSA finale Q&A where we cut apart 8 boots under $400 that are all made in the United States, and we judge them solely off of the quality of materials, not necessarily the value or what you get per dollar, just strictly what is the best one, no matter the price. And we just released the MITUSA finale on the main channel where we go through each boot, kind of give you the cliff notes of what you might want to know, and like the good, the bad, and what each boot is best for. And this is just like more free-form, casual, answering your guys' questions about the series. And so let's start with question number 1, Daniel Skeen on the question mic.
All right, from Instagram, @JoshySinger. Which one do you think is the most overpriced retail-wise, since we all know foam runners resell for ridiculous amounts? Crying emoji.
Well, so which one is the most overpriced? Probably the Wolverine 1,000 miles are, for sure, because they cost $400 and they're built like a boot that's in like the $275 price range, and there's some big issues with it. For $400, like even the Red Wings, the mock toes at $300 are significantly better than the 1,000 miles. And honestly, the 1,000-mile boots should be around like the $270 price range, in my opinion, if you compare it on the spectrum of all the boots that we've cut apart.
@Reese Dameron, do you think someone could make a better boot than any of these for under $400?
There's slight room for improvement, with the JK300s getting close to that $400 price range and being the best quality materials, in my opinion. Could it be done better for around the same price? I don't really think so. Because the way that the JK boots are made, it's not like a line production with a huge factory. It's a small group of people making these boots by hand lasting them. They don't have the big machines. So if you value that as part of the quality equation, essentially, then it's hard to beat the JK300. So if you just look at components and you had if Red Wing really just doubled down and was like, we're making the best boot out of all the best materials for under $400, because of their streamlined production, they could technically make a higher quality boot for under $400. So yes and yes, essentially.
Anemia Leathercraft, which would you grab in a zombie apocalypse scenario?
That's a good one, because if you want them to last a really long time, but you also don't want them big and chunky, and so that you can't run around, and you want them very versatile. You want them heavy duty, but still lightweight, in my opinion, for a zombie apocalypse. So the Origins might be a really good option, because out of all the boots, the Origins are the most low profile, the most athletic feeling. They feel a lot more like a sneaker, but they still have a really thick leather upper. They don't have the leather insole, so that's where you might run into a few problems. But absolute worst case scenario, at least you have the stitch down at the toe that's hidden under the outsole. And if you started wearing through some of the layers on the inside, you do have that huge slab of leather as the midsole. So it wouldn't be comfortable if you wore through those synthetic materials, but at least there's something between you and the ground. And the agility, I think, is what puts it over the top. And also, so we're just not choosing Red Wings and the JK300s for every single question.
Did anyone do better on the bite test, significantly?
I don't think so. I think they're all fairly close to the same. So zombie bite, not zombie bite proof is essentially the answer to that.
@Yen is my name. Which of them is more wide foot friendly, or at least thicker socks friendly?
So the Red Wing 1907, it's that mock toe boot that's built on a wider last. The JK300s, you can get them in as wide of a width as you want, I believe. They still do that with the 300. I think they let you choose the size. Other than that, though, they're all fairly narrow. They're just like every other heritage boot, where they just aren't anatomically shaped. But there are heritage style boots out there that aren't made in the United States, like the Jim Greens have super wide toe boxes, but they're made in South Africa. So yeah, I guess the widest and most comfortable for wide feet would be the mock toe Red Wings.
@ManlyThings05 and Sid's Diary.
Sid's Diarrhea.
Sid's Diary asked essentially the same question. If you were going to spend your money on one of these boots and actually wear them, which one would you buy?
So if I were going to buy one for work, I would do the JK300s. If I were to buy one for the look, I still think it's hard to beat the Iron Ranger classic heritage look. But also people really like those Thursday loggers because of how they're more of a pointy toe. They're an easier way to ease your way in to the heritage boot world. And for everyday comfort wear, the Thorogoods are pretty hard to beat. They're so comfy.
At Samuel the Wavy,
Hey, I know that name.
is there a significant difference in quality between China made and USA made?
That's a good question. I think there's probably a little bit of a difference, but you can find the cheapest things made in the US or the most expensive and highest quality things that are made in the United States. So it's like, that's a hard question to answer because some of the finest boots that we've reviewed in Grant Stones are made in China. And some of the worst boots that we've reviewed are from U.S. companies. I guess they're not necessarily made in the U.S. So it's an impossible question to answer because you'd have to have every single type of boot and shoe made in each country and then average it out and see who wins. But you can get the best boots made in the U.S. and you can get the best boots made in China. It's just there's that stigma around people wanting to buy stuff from the U.S., which I understand. Support your own country, support your own marketplace and the economy. But when it comes to strict quality, I think you can find quality anywhere. That was a very diplomatic answer, wasn't it?
Yeah. At Tristan O Altavia, where would you rank the USA in respect to the rest of the world in terms of producing quality footwear? England, Spain, Italy, Indonesia, more recently, are some great shoemaking countries. But I think that there's a good argument for the USA to be the best in the world with brands like Red Wing, Alden, Allen, Edmonds, and the P&W brands, et cetera.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question too, because we can kind of put that in a couple different categories. Because if you're looking for the most beefiest, durable, longest lasting work boots in the world, America makes them. Like the Pacific Northwest, a lot of these brands, you just can't get a better durable boot out there. But they're not the most attractive boots. And then like some of the English boots, they're like really finely finished. They have that really unique English look to them. The Indonesian brands, you can get a lot higher quality boot for a lot cheaper. And they're a lot more hand sewn and a lot more finely finished than the Pacific Northwest boots. So it's a difficult one to answer because I would say US is best for hardworking. Indonesia's best for value for your like that top tier boot. What other countries are famous for boots? Japan. Yeah. Italy has this interesting stigma where people assume anything from Italy is going to be high quality. Anything from Italy is high quality. But in all reality, a lot of the things that come from Italy are really cheap and they rely on that Italian stigma to sell it at a higher price. But that's not the case because once again, you can't really generalize an entire country's boot making capabilities off of a few brands. So that is not an answer, but that's the best answer I have.
At Chad Bailey Barber, which boot do you think is the best embodiment of the MITUSA spirit?
Oh, wow. That is a unique question. It's got to be Origin because they source every single component from the United States except for the midsole. The eyelets are from the U.S., the threads from the U.S., the leather is, the outsole, everything but that midsole. And that's a huge goal of Origin, and that's what really makes them unique is they've really dedicated themselves to onshoring as much of the production and the materials as possible because they believe in supporting their own country and living in a country that can produce your most basic needs and goods. Because after the coronavirus, a lot of people are like, oh, wow, we can't actually make a whole lot of things here in the U.S. And we're completely dependent on other countries for our goods. And so the embodiment of the MITUSA series has got to be Origin because they're actively trying to change that. Also, they're jacked as shit. The whole crew, every single one of those guys on the Origin team, and they look like the most American guys in the boot world. And they do jiu-jitsu.
Oh.
And they're friends with Joe Rogan.
Well,
and Jocko. All the most Americans.
Jiu-jitsu?
Brazilian jiu-jitsu in America.
Well, that's in America.
Yeah, close enough.
At wiredcustoms.va, which is the best quality for the price?
So this is what we asked you guys to vote on for the main channel MITUSA series. So I'll put the rankings here to show you guys what you ranked. And for me, if I were for per dollar, which boot is the best? I think the Red Wing mock toes they're like $310 and they have all the same components as the Iron Rangers that are $50 more, plus a rubber slip sole. And they have the leather lining instead of the cotton lining that the Iron Rangers have. And they're very similar to the JK300 boots. And the JK300s are $70, $80 more. I still think these are high. I still think the JK300s are higher quality, but are they $70 higher quality? That's up to what you are going to use them for. So when it comes to a middle price range that still has everything I'm looking for, that's going to give you the heritage feel with the veg tan insole, nice leather, I think these mock toes are pretty high up there on the value scale, in my opinion. I always say in my opinion, like it's not my opinion. Like I have to give that disclaimer. I don't know why I do that.
At AdHasM1, any particular boot you were hoping to review but never got the chance?
I've Westco and Viberg, because they're hard to get a hold of. And I have a pair of Westcos and I have a pair of Vibergs, and we're actually going to be doing a Westco a couple videos coming up because I got a really cool pair. So I'm excited about those because it's the last of the big Pacific Northwest brands that we haven't covered. And same with Viberg. Viberg is another brand that's similar, that has the same heritage, but they transitioned to more of the casual footwear sooner than the other brands. And so they're a lot farther down the road in that way. And so those two brands are the ones I really want to check out.
I'm just going to spell this one at James MFKNR.
I know what that means.
I don't. Comfiest out of the box.
Thorogoods. They have the really thick insole. The fiberboard breaks in really quickly because it's fiberboard and it's not as thick and durable and hard as leather. Plus all the cork underneath compresses quickly. And the upper, it's high quality leather and it lasts a really long time, and it's tumbled to nearly a glovey extent. Like it's so malleable and soft that you can really wear Thorogoods for an 8-hour work shift the first day. You might be in a little bit of pain, but they're significantly more comfortable out of the box than basically any of these other boots. Maybe except for the Yeezy foam runners. So that technically might be the most comfortable out of the box.
All foam.
All foam, all day, baby.
At the Grout Guys, is the Wolverine 1,000 mile boot still relevant, given there are cheaper options?
I think they're still relevant because the 1,000 mile name is a popular thing, and it's a cool branding and marketing name. And so I think they're relevant, but I don't really think they should be, if I'm being honest, because I think they, like I said, they're built like a $250, $270 boot, and they charge $400. And I've had some issues with mine, even though like the last that they're built on fits my foot the best. I don't really wear them because they're just not the quality that I was hoping they'd be.
Okay, now over to the YouTube community. At some Calit Life asks, will we see an increase in MITUSA boots, and should there be? Also, do you think there will be a resurgence of the cobbler trade in the near future?
Okay, so the first question is, are we going to see a resurgence in MITUSA boots? I'm not sure if he means are more brands going to spring up that are making boots in the U.S. or are we going to review more boots on the channel from the stuff that's made in the U.S.? I think the answer is yes to both, because I like doing the made in the United States boots. I like seeing what we can do here in the U.S. compared to the other countries as a little bit of the competitive American spirit I have, you know? And I think there's a resurgence in the interest in cobbling and leatherworking, you know, a lot from not necessarily just my channel, but a lot of the cobbling channels have just blown up, like Trenton and Heath, Beato's Leatherworking, Nick's and White's have their own like channels, and JK has a channel where they show how all their boots are made. So you can literally learn how to make their boots from their videos. And that just inspires a lot of people that I think I could do that, you know, like, okay, I see the whole process. I think I can do that. So it's really cool because leatherworking is a passion of mine. And that's how we got into reviewing boots and shoes. Was I'm a professional leather worker. I'm hopping on YouTube to review some products. What should we review? Well, the most popular leather product is boots. So let's cut some boots in half. And so for me, at my core, being a leather worker, it's cool to see so many people getting into cobbling and leatherworking and high quality leather footwear.
At Mr. Llama 999, how would you rank them in order of comfort?
Ooh, Yeezy's number 1. Number 2, Thorogoods. Number 3, Origin. Number 4, Thursday. Number 5, Wolverine. Number 6, Corcoran. Number 7, 7, 8, and 9 are all going to be the Red Wings and JKs, because they're all going to be tough break-ins. That was off the top of my head, so that's far from an official ranking, but I think we covered them all, and I feel fairly comfortable with that. I think.
Comfortable comfort ranking. Yes. At Ray Hoge, why are Thorogood boots so much heavier than the other boots on the market?
I don't think they are. I'm not sure where he's getting that because I don't think they're that heavy at all, if I'm being honest. I always say, if I'm being honest, a bunch too. If I'm being honest, in my opinion, these are like little terms that I'm like kind of hiding behind my opinion a little bit. So I need to stop doing those. But yeah, I don't think they're heavy. I think they're lighter than most of the other boots. Maybe they're heavier than the 6-inch alternatives of like Red Wings and these other brands because it's an 8-inch boot. But I don't think they're heavy at all. I guess the outsole is heavy because it's a wedge sole, but no more than any other wedge sole.
At DJNJ23, which boot is the best for stomping? Because I need something to properly replace my Air Force Ones.
Oh, stomping in his Air Force Ones. Okay.
Stomp the yard.
Yeah. If we're talking about like stomping the yard, or are we talking about stomping on shovels, curb stomping? What kind of stomping are we talking about? I don't know. Stomping on a, let's say stomping on a shovel. Let's say he's asking about work and not stomping the yard. Thorogoods have a fiberglass shank, but you don't have the support of the leather insole. The Red Wings, you could stomp on a lot of stuff. The Iron Rangers do have a leather or a steel shank, but the mock toes don't. So stomping, I think to really stomp, you got to have a steel shank. None of the wedge soles have a steel shank. So I think I would say either the Thorogoods for stomping the yard, because they're going to be comfortable, and they have the fiberglass shank, and the Iron Rangers, because they have a steel shank. But I also have zero idea what he's meaning by stomping. So, I don't know.
At Carter Casey 8149, are the materials in the boots sources from U.S. companies?
From U.S. companies?
From U.S. companies.
Well, that's what makes Origin unique, is that they go out of their way to source as many of the materials and parts of the boots from the U.S. And then the rest, I think the Thorogoods, I think they say made in the U.S. from imported parts. Yeah, made in the USA with U.S. and globally sourced components. And that can be anything from just the eyelets to the outsole to the entire upper being made somewhere else, and then it's just bottomed in the United States. So, Origin.
At scoutrush.com, why aren't the New Balance 990 V5s on the list? Is it only for reviews in the last 12 months?
Yeah, we mostly just forgot about it, to be honest. And it's like most of them are boots, and the Yeezys were just a joke. And what was his username? I was like half distracted through that entire question because of his username.
Scoutrush.com.
What is a Scout Rush? Boy Scout? Like a herd of Boy Scouts rushing towards you?
Quickly, yeah.
That would be horrifying.
Wait for the next username.
Okay.
At Packmaster3000.
Packmaster. Just a Manny Pacquiao fan or Pac-Man fan, or just packing things in his car, and he just like loves organization just generally.
It is PAC.
Oh, so maybe like the Pac-12?
Pac-12, yeah.
Okay.
Why you never talk about Alan Edmonds?
I don't know. They're dressier. And so I just, I come from more of the blue collar workwear world. And so Alan Edmonds just aren't something I would usually wear. And so I just haven't really had a lot of personal interest in reviewing them, but we'll probably do dress boots and shoes this year. It's about time we have, or about time we do. But I don't know. I don't have anything against them. I think it's just not interesting to me.
At Hazard4568, what is the best work boot on the MITUSA board?
That's another tough one, because it's like, what work are we talking about? Like I mentioned, Thorogoods are really easy to recommend because they're comfortable right out of the box. Like if you go to any work site, people are wearing Thorogoods. They're wearing Timberlands, Thorogoods. You don't see a lot of people wearing Red Wings because they're heritage. Even though they're like work heritage, nobody really wears them to work. The Corcoran jump boots, no one wear those to work. The JK300s are a work boot. So for a wedge sole, I think if you want a heavier duty, harder wearing work boot, you go with the JK300s. If you want comfort and you want to replace them every year or so, the Thorogoods. And then everything else isn't really a work boot. You could technically work in the Origins, but they're not a dedicated work boot. So Thorogood and JK are really the only two real work boots, in my opinion. Oh, why do I keep doing that? What's wrong with me?
At Jacob Jackson 597, Why on earth is sizing for these premium handmade boots such a pain? Hardly any of them run true to size. There's always a weird drawn out method for figuring out what you actually need to order. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's one of the biggest hurdles for getting into these P&W brands like Nick's and JK Boots.
I have the same question. I have no idea. I don't know. Because the thing is, like, people, like, I'm not saying specifically the Pacific Northwest boots, but like boots in general. I'm like, well, why don't you just up the size half a size if you're making everyone's size down? Like, well, on the last, they're like written, that's the size. I'm like, well, then take a Sharpie, cross it out, and write it in there again. Or take like a, because they're like stamped in, but you could take a grind that out and just take some letter stamps and stamp new ones in. It might take you a whole day, but then every single person buying your boots would know exactly what size to order. You know, in the Pacific Northwest brands, they used to have you trace your feet and they would size it for you, but half the time it was wrong anyway. And everyone has personal preference. But I think really at the core of it, people's feet are so different that sizing's all over the place. But I still don't know why they don't just make it universal across the board. Like, we have the internet now. You could have some sort of systematic way of making sure all these brands are true to size, but they just don't. And maybe there's just not enough incentive, because at the end of the day, people are still buying boots. So I don't know. It's a good question.
All of these users ask the same question. At SatisYearPro, at JM4895, at Martia Lim.
Is this like a bot spamming us with the same question over and over?
Maybe at Martia Limit
or just
Limitator.
Sam's, what do they call them? Like fake accounts, burner accounts.
Yeah, his fences. Well, this is a YouTube community. At Galahad Arthur 5241, at Almog83875 on Instagram, at Lucas O Bateman, at Sparkles Markles, at Katie KC, at Lobo Bronxmaid, at Bugatti 550, all asked, what about the Trumans?
Yeah. Well, we also covered this in the Mocktoe Q&A. Truman was changing some things in their construction, and so rather than doing a video on something that was going to be immediately outdated, I just was like, well, let's just wait until all those changes are made. But we still have those boots, so we'll be able to cut them apart and show you, like, okay, here's what the old Trumans used to look like. Here's what they've improved. Do you like the changes? Do you dislike the changes? And it just would be a better video if we waited. You know, we could have done 2 videos and gotten more and more views, but we want to make sure we're representing the brands as accurately as possible. So when it comes to reviewing their boots, that's why, like, a lot of people email us and are like, hey, can I give these boots to you? I bought them, they're the wrong size. And I'm like, I would love to, but I don't know how much you wore them, if they're factory seconds, how old they are. Like, I try to buy them directly from the manufacturer every single time, just because we don't want to misrepresent a brand. You know, when you get 100,000 views on a video and you're like completely off, it just ends up being better to wait, even though we could have done 2 videos. So any last questions for you, Daniel?
You know, I've been thinking, what's the best waterproof? It's pretty slushy out right now.
You asked what waterproof boot? Well, the Thorogoods are. Thorogoods are waterproof. And
best heel.
Best heel. The Thursdays actually have a full leather heel stack for under $300, which is pretty wild. I'm not sure how they did that. It's pretty cool. And the biggest disappointment of the entire series was the Corcoran jump boots and the 1,000 Mile boots. They're just a bummer. They just did not live up to the expectations. So, yeah, let us know what you think of the MITUSA series. Let us know what you think of the Q&As. I like doing these because it's just fun to sit down and, like, think through certain things that I never would have questioned and answer your guys' questions, get you guys engaged and involved in some of the more Rose Anvil 2 stuff that we don't have to optimize for the algorithm. We're not trying to make everything perfect, just casual stuff out here on the Rose Anvil 2 channel. So support this video because I love doing the Q&As and I'd like to do more. So thank you guys for all the support. Thanks for supporting all these brands that sponsor the videos and all the sponsors of the boot videos, and for supporting all the different series we do with Mocktober, MITUSA. I want to do a Great British Boot Off where we do the British boots. We have Arch March coming up. We have Barefoot February. We have Yeezy April. So we got a bunch of cool series coming up, and I like doing. We're actually doing like a ton of Birkenstocks. We got like a Danner series planned. Lots of fun stuff coming up. So support these series because I love doing them, and especially the Q&As. So thank you guys. Go check out the MITUSA finale if you haven't seen it already. I think they're posting on the same day, and I think that's everything we need to plug. So thanks to Daniel Skeen for being on the hot question mic, and thank you guys for everything you do. And subscribe if you're not subscribed, because the Rose and Anvil 2 channel needs some help getting those subs up so we can convince more sponsors to pay us money to do these videos, because it's hard getting sponsors. So thank you guys. See ya.